Hello everyone, my name is Jack Hill, a classmate in your circular economy class. And today we're going to be going over what I thought about our course material for this week. And to do that, we're going to focus on 3 points. The past, why circular economy I think hasn't caught on in the past. And 2, the present, the shift towards the circular economy model, especially in developing countries. And the 3rd, questions going into the future about our adoption of this new economic model. Let's jump into it. It was quite surprising for me that we haven't adopted this economic model earlier. It makes so much sense. Almost zero waste, completely sustainable development. But if we examine it from a producer point of view, we realize that, all these developed countries who were in the frontier of development, who needed a lot of resources, have historically been able to take that need for resources and outsource it to less developed countries who will handle the resource extraction, the resource refinery, and then transport it back for very, very cheap cost. And there's no incentive to engage in a circular economy when there's no monetary incentive in a capitalist system. Now, with a rising standard of living in most developed countries in the world, this has led to 2 problems to this model. One, the raising labor costs and the cost of production makes it more difficult to outsource production of resources to other countries. And 2, with the rising standard of living in developing countries comes the need for greater infrastructure. That'll be housing for the new population, roads to transport goods, the factories, the schools, the new cities that are being built. These combined with the concurrent economic growth of developing nations puts a greater strain on our resource needs. And this makes the circular economy model a more sensible solution. But I do have questions about how the shift to circular economy model will lead into the future. When I was reviewing the literature for this week, I read the PACE report of the gap in the circular economy. It mentioned how out of 100 gigatons of raw material, only about 8 tons or so were recycled. And most of those were recycled in developed nations. And I think this is because developed nations have the infrastructure to do it, and they have the economic incentive to do it, as in it is worth it to them on a cost-benefit level for them to do this. But there's a question when we extend this model to less developed nations. 1, how much is it going to cost to build up the infrastructure in this shift to economic sustainability through the circular economy model? And 2, how much is it going to cost to retrain labor to do this circular economy work when they no longer adopt a linear model? Think about all the people engaged in recycling, all the people engaged in designing a new system to make it a circular model, all the scientists and engineers that needs to be redirected from other areas of production into the circular economy. And 3rd, perhaps most critical question is, will these new labor that we are putting towards the circular economy be as efficient and as productive as people who are currently engaged in the linear economic model? Because if you remember from Econ 201, labor productivity is the #1 driver. It's probably the only driver of real wage growth without hurting corporate profit. And that has just been true in the United States and in countries abroad. Unless labor are productive, you cannot have real wage growth, and you cannot increase the standard of living, save for significant technological progress. If the efficiency of labor in the circular economy is lower, then this leads to an inequality problem, because developing nations have a lower standard of living than developed nations. If we are forcing undeveloped nations to adopt a circular economy model through some kind of international compliance measure, like sanctions, like if you don't do this, we'll kick you out of the World Trade Organization. That's real equality problems, because in some developing countries, people still don't have water, they don't have good education, housing is scarce and expensive, and food insecurity is a real problem. Then we need to strike a balance between, well, the circular economy is going to be better for the world in the long run. It's going to make it more sustainable, we'll all be happier. But in the short run, switching to a circular economy model hurts the less developed countries more because they haven't got that level of economic development and surplus that allows them to do this transition smoothly without damaging the welfare of their citizens. And that's kind of what I care a lot about, because my interest is in education, and I believe that with the proper amount of education, we can make the most of our individual citizens and put everyone's brains and hearts to work. But if we're not able to do that evenly, I see this as a potential cause of greater international inequality, which is obviously bad, right? And we're gonna end right there.